Can I welcome to the stage Katie?
Hello, hi. My name is Gamanji, and I'm one of the cloud platform engineers for Condé Nast. Around 1.5 years ago, I joined Condé Nast to contribute to a project that aims to create a centralized, globally distributed platform that has Kubernetes at its centerpiece. Today, I'm going to talk you through how exactly we achieve this. And more specifically, I'm going to focus on what was our motivation to create a centralized platform and why we wanted to globally distribute it. And finally, I'm going to focus on our developer experience and how this is a key indicator of how we build and deploy our platform. Before I move forward, how many of you know what Condé Nast does or delivers as a product? It's a very good turnaround, actually. So, just an introduction to Condé Nast. Condé Nast has set the benchmark for print and digital publishing for more than 110 years. We operate brands that are fashion and luxury oriented, and you might be familiar with some of the brands like Vogue, GQ, Wired, Vanity Fair, AD&M, and more. These are just a few of the brands that we have in our portfolio. Currently, we have 38 brands, and we distribute them in 26 languages. So it's quite an inclusive range of products we have out there. With the headquarters in London and New York, we operate on an international scale in more than 12 countries. We have 86 websites overall, and they generate more than 300 million unique users every single month. So far, we reach a total of 1.6 billion page views every single month. This means that every single minute, we're going to distribute 37,000 articles to our users. So it's quite a considerable customer base we have out there. Now, how exactly the journey towards a centralized platform began? In the past, the global market teams acted like independent business units. At the time, this was the right thing to do because it provided the right environment for growth and development. However, from an engineering point of view, with evolution of different deployment mechanisms, it was clear that the markets have quite an individualized and tailored tech stack, with very little shared components in between them. This included the systems to deliver and host the live traffic, as well as the CMS tools used by our editors to deliver their content. Another inconsistency for us, which was quite big, was the discrepancy in visual and design, as it made it difficult for us to have a unified experience for our customers across all our brands. As such, 2 years ago, we decided to kick off a digital transformation project that will create this global platform. Let's look at how our platform looks at the moment. All the websites hosting our platform are going to be hosted by Fastly. Fastly is our CDN provider, and having a CDN provider allows us to reduce the load on our backend systems while improving the time to deliver the content to our users. Supposedly, we have a new article that hasn't been cached by our CDN. In this case, an xcache miss response header is going to be returned, and the request is going to be forwarded to Traffic. Traffic is our ingress controller that manages the access from external users to the services within our Kubernetes clusters. Once we have an endpoint, the request is going to be forwarded to the global web app, which is a multi-tenant application. It will be able to identify the market, the brands, and the article the user requires, and we're going to deliver it to the user. I would like to focus a bit more on our Kubernetes setup. Now, Kubernetes underpins the entire infrastructure of Condé Nast. We are a CoreOS house, meaning that we're using Tectonic installer for our cluster deployment, and we're using etcd for the storage of cluster data. Using Tectonic allows us to plug into different cloud providers while consuming the compute and networking resources. Currently, we operate more than 50 instances in AWS, which is our cloud provider by choice. As well, we make use of auto-scaling groups to make sure we scale up and down based on the interaction of our customers with our brands. All the showcased infrastructure here is mainly deployed using Terraform, having infrastructure as code at the basis. In terms of other tools that ensure the operability of the systems within our clusters, these are just a few of the open source tools we use. They ensure authentication, or they provide authentication, monitoring, logging, networking, and many more. We use Helm, which is our de facto deployment packager, to Kubernetes. Now, our platform is live since October last year, actually October 2018, when we first launched GK France. Since then, we migrated 2/3 of our intended estate, and so far we almost serve 300 million requests from our backend systems. So it's quite an impressive amount of requests we've accumulated throughout the migration process. Now, at this stage, we have a platform that is centralized and it's scalable. Do we need to think about global distribution? The answer is yes. Now, if you look at the map, you can see that we operate in areas which are quite geographically dispersed. Another thing I would like to draw your attention towards is China and Russia. Now, from these two countries alone, we have 60 million unique users every single month, and they generate more than 20% of our entire digital readership. It's quite a considerable customer base, and we have to be prepared technically to meet the demand in these areas. However, deploying infrastructure to countries like Russia and China can be quite challenging from an infrastructure standpoint. When we kicked off the project for the digital transformation, we did not have a clear vision of one cloud provider that's going to be used for all platforms across all regions. As such, this enforces our decision to go with a self-hosted Kubernetes solution where we actually manage our clusters and we do not outsource it to everyone else. We'll be able to lift and shift our clusters as long as we have compute, and we will not create snowflakes, which is actually quite important. Another reason for global distribution is origin latency. If you'd serve all the content from one set of servers or one origin, then you introduce a latency to the end user. We do not want that. What we actually aim for is the market proximity and the highest user experience for our customers. As such, it was a business decision to replicate our clusters in 5 different regions, creating 9 clusters. We have 3 clusters in Europe, a dev, staging, and production one, to deliver the content to our European markets. The cluster in North Virginia is going to focus on the Mexican and the US market, while the cluster in Asia Pacific is going to deliver the content for our Taiwanese, Japanese, and Indian customers. China alone has 2 dedicated clusters, a staging and a production one, while in Dublin we have 2 more clusters to host our internal tools. Now, if you look at the map, you'll be able to see that we don't have a replica of our tech stack in Russia. This is because the current strategy is to serve the content from our European servers while having a CDN, which is Russian-oriented. This will ensure our service availability in Russia while investing minimal engineering effort. So, at this stage, we have a platform that is centralized and is globally distributed. We need to think about how our developers interact with our platform. At Condé Nast, the cloud platform teams believe that having a solid, well-defined CI/CD process is the way to move forward. Currently, we have around 40 developers, and throughout time, we developed 40 microservices. At this moment in time, we reach around 15 deployments every single week, showing the high ratio of feature development we have at the moment. Supposedly, we'd like to launch a new application to our new clusters, or we'd like to push a new feature to the cluster. The way to go forward about that will require 2 dependencies. First, we'll require a Dockerized version of our application, which is going to be stored in key.io, which is our Docker image registry by choice. Secondly, all the teams are provided with a template Helm chart to deploy their application. They'll be able to provide a configuration file where they can specify settings such as amount of replicas, amount of CPU and memory they require, or if they would like to scale their application horizontally by using an HBA object. Once these 2 dependencies are available, a CI pipeline is going to be triggered. Now, the CI pipeline is again fully customizable by the teams, so it's quite common to see application-specific workflows within it. Once the application is live, the team will be able to log into the cluster and interact with it. It is worth to mention that currently we dedicate 1 namespace for every single team. Another thing I would like to focus as well is the RBAC rules. Currently, everyone, this includes the dev and the admin team, have view-only privileges. This means that they will not be able to modify anything manually. Now, for the developer teams, having view-only privileges, it allows them to see all the configuration of other applications, and this is pretty much a perfect incentive for inter-team collaboration and knowledge sharing. As well, developers will have admin teams within their own namespace. And we make use of resource quotas to make sure that cases of resource overutilizations are not happening. As well, having view-only privileges means that for the admin team or the cloud platform team, we'll not be able to modify resources manually, and it will ensure the best practices while interacting with the cluster. We'll need to push the changes through the pipeline all the time, so we kind of dismiss the possibility of having human errors. This process can be replicated for every single cluster, and the team will be able to tailor any application to a cluster if need be. Now, going for digital transformation, it's not easy. It comes with its challenges. And these are just a few of them I would like to mention. Now, Condé Nast is a digital-first company. However, we take developer experience as a key indicator of how we build and deploy our platform. Service continuity is something else we have to deal with. Now, when we migrate services to a new platform, we need to make sure that we have minimal disruption to our users. When I mean minimal, we actually always tend to have no disruption whatsoever. This is possible for us by using varnished configuration files, which allows us to apply changes to the cache with immediate effect. Upgrades, unfortunately, are still a pain point for us. Now, this is because we have a self-hosted solution for Kubernetes. However, we try to improve the process with every single release, and we try to automate as much as possible as well. And I've mentioned China and Russia, and I would like to mention it again. These countries are very challenging to deploy infrastructure into. However, Condé Nast has a strategy to approach the demand in both of these areas. And in terms of the future, these are just a few of the things we actually have in our pipeline at the moment. Global platform is something we kicked off quite recently. Historically, we had a US platform and we had a Condé Nast international platform. Both of them very proficient and both of them solving very important developer problems. We try to converge them together and have any deduplication of the features at the moment. In terms of the new tools we would like to introduce, tracing and service mesh are just a few of them. And in terms of the principles that we want to advocate, we have chaos engineering and the SRE function. Now, with chaos engineering, we'd actually inject failure within our clusters and our applications and see how our cluster behaves when everything goes down. Well, not everything, but hopefully when things go down, we try to automate the recovery process. And the SRE is something which I'm very passionate about and quite excited about as well. It's a new function within our cloud platforms team, and they have this holistic vision of walled applications and the connection between the microservices. And most importantly, they actually have the power, based on SLOs, they have the power to push back on future development and bring back tickets from the backlog, which will ensure that we fix any customer outages or any customer issues straight away. And that's pretty much it. This is how we reach a globally centralized, globally distributed platform. But again, we mainly focus on our developer experience, and this is a key indicator of how we build our platform. In conclusion, if I go to the next slide, we're actually far from completion of our migration process. However, so far we managed to create a centralized platform with a management mechanism. However, what's more important for us is that we further empowered our international and local teams and their product. And if you'd like to work with us, please use the link provided here. I think that's mandatory everywhere. As well, if you have any questions in regards to today's talk, please contact me on social media. Thank you.
Okay, do we have time for questions? We do, right?
Oh, questions, I forgot.
Yeah.
I was living.
Okay, you speak beautifully. Is this a soft skill you've worked on as part of career objectives or just practice?
Oh, both of them. I think public speaking was something which I was very fond of. I've got the opportunities from some of my colleagues. They really, really empowered me to do some of the big talks, such as the keynote in Barcelona, which was in front of 8,000 people. And I'm going to do even more keynotes this year based on that particular opportunity. So it's definitely one of the soft skills which I wanted to focus on, and as well, my colleagues and the company allowed me to actually grow this skill.
Cool, that was a great one. We have one more minute, and we have nothing else on the Slido at the moment. So does anybody else have any questions in the audience? We have one over here. Let's bring over the mic.
I'm just interested in the fact that you do have services in China, but not in Russia. So they're both tricky countries to deploy in. So how can you have a presence in China and not in Russia? What role that would?
I think this comes with a context as well, because in Russia we have an engineering team and they're extremely capable to hold their own infrastructure, which means to actually migrate to Russia, for example, what we need is just a CDN, which is caching the content, which means we don't need to go to our service all the time. They'll be able to pretty much take care of that caching layer. Now, in China, it's way much more complicated, I would say. Again, public cloud in both of these countries, it's quite restricted. When you go to, for example, for AWS, you're not going to have all the services, and it's going to be just a limitation of them. And in Russia, that's even more complicated. Actually, both of them are complicated. In Russia, we found a way which will ensure that we can deliver our content to our users, like with minimal engineering effort and with minimal resources without creating very snowflakey infrastructure. In China, however, AWS got more mature from the beginning of the project, actually got more mature, and will be able to create something more stable. That's why we have a presence there.
Cool. I think that's all the time we have for questions.